Hello there. Thank you for joining me for the latest edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cooke. This week on the show, we're going to take a look at a couple of aspects of local life that have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and by the resulting social distancing protocols here in Nova Scotia. We're going to get the perspective of the business community here in the Strait area and talk about how local businesses are coping with the struggles that they're facing and how the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce is giving them a hand. As well, we're going to get a sense on what will happen to community events here in the Strait over the next little while, and we're going to be speaking with two officials who have some inside information about how life has changed here as a result of COVID-19. First of all, let's speak to the Acting Executive Director of the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce. Susan Fox and her colleagues have been very busy over the past month working with local businesses to help them get through this crisis, and she's also been active in setting up a Facebook group that will help people determine where they can get goods and food and other such things from businesses that are adopting some new business models to serve their customers. Let's check out that interview now. We are pleased to be joined by Susan Fox, who is the Acting Executive Director for the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you, Susan, for joining me for this interview. And I'd like to begin by asking you to kind of walk back towards when you and the Chamber got the sense that things were really changing very quickly and how you folks have been able to adapt from that point onward in terms of being able to reach out to your businesses. What has just the last month been like for you folks as you've tried to deal with all this?
Well, when it all began, people were starting to work from home, and businesses were posting online how they were changing their hours, or that they were working from home, or they were doing counter pickups. So we saw that we should maybe group that all into one place. So we created the two Facebook groups. I'm sure a lot of people have seen them now. The Cape Breton North businesses that deliver Cape Breton North, and businesses that deliver Cape Breton South and Northern Nova Scotia. So the businesses can go in there and add their hours. They can state that they are making physical deliveries, or just that what have they done to deliver their product or get their product to their people, whether it be a counter pickup, door pickup. A lot of businesses have changed their hours as well. Some people have changed that they're just the way they're offering their products. So we wanted them to be able to put that in a place, and that's how it kind of all started.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about that, because I have seen the businesses that deliver Facebook group as well too, and I really am impressed with a lot of the local businesses being so willing to adapt, and I mean adapting on the fly too. I mean, some businesses did try to stay open with reduced hours, some wound up having to close entirely, some were able to keep curbside delivery or takeout delivery in terms of restaurants being able to happen. Can you speak a little bit to the idea that there has been a real adaptation by a lot of the businesses here, and that a lot of them have done very well in this day and age?
Oh, for sure. And with regard to those groups, anyone can post in those. Like, we initially started them and reached out to a couple of businesses, and we still have businesses reaching out to us and asking us to put information on there. But any business can go on there, whether they're a chamber member or not. They can add their information in. And yeah, a lot of businesses are doing very well at adapting. I don't know that they have the amount of business that they originally had, but they've changed how they're delivering their service. I know there's a couple of restaurants in our chamber that the Barracan Bistro, Cafe and Bakery, and the Groundswell in Discouse, they changed that they're offering meal plans and takeout, and the Groundswell can even add beer to your order, because the provincial government changed that, and takeout orders, they can serve alcohol. So that's a real change. You can get pizza and beer pickup at a local restaurant, and that wasn't available before. So the things are changing, and there's different, like I say, counter pickups and things like that. So they've been able to do that. I know some restaurants have closed and other businesses closed for a short time, but they're changing their business model to get that their product out the door. And I think you'll see more and more of that come in the coming days.
All right, well, we look forward to seeing how that all comes together. In the meantime, can you tell me a little bit about what the Chamber of Commerce is doing to help some of its members at this time? I mean, what kind of help and what kind of assistance have you been able to give to local businesses as we go through this COVID-19 period?
Well, we've created a landing page on our website where people can go and see all of the government programs that are out there for businesses. There's webinars on how people are, changing their business model, webinars on e-commerce, things like that, they a real resource center for businesses to go to. The Small Business Impact Grant is coming up. The deadline is Saturday. So we've been putting that information on our website. Also, we've been putting it out through social media. There's businesses that call the office with questions, and we've tried to kind of make connections between businesses. There was a business down north that had contacted us, and they were wondering about some of the programs, and through the course of the conversation I mentioned they had closed their restaurant for the time being and trying to think about how to open it again, and I told them, reach out to some of these businesses that are doing it and seem to be doing quite well, because I know the chamber world was created so that you could be a stronger community and help one another out and be a voice going forward. And I think that I know that these businesses don't mind helping one another. We all want to see ourselves, rise from this and be better or go through this together. And I think that also, having said that, as the chamber community, you're a larger voice. Our chamber is a member of the Atlantic Chamber, which is a member of the Canadian Chamber, and in pushing programs through government and trying to let them know where the gaps are, because we're hearing it through conversations. So we have those conversations, either telephone, webinar, or emails that we've sent on to the government to try and get the word out that this is where there's gaps in the program. So we're there for you, the businesses, and reach out to us. So, and again, go on to the website and get that information off of there.
I'd like to talk to you a little more about the federal government and provincial government programs that have been rolled out in the wake of all of this, in terms of the difficulties that businesses are experiencing right now. And I do know that there are some businesses that have raised some concerns that there could be gaps in the program, as you mentioned. Can you elaborate a little bit on how you folks feel the program is coming together, but also what concerns that you and the chamber members might have that you'd like to see addressed in the coming days?
There were some gaps. I know that the wage subsidy that's coming out the end of the month here was 10%, and we had a voice with our conversations with the federal government to say that it needs to be more than that, and it was very quickly that changed to 75%. And the EI program, the shortening up of the time, the wait period, it was voice that we put forward, and, businesses together across the country that, let the government know that. And that's changing every day. They're learning as well as we are learning. And as I said, you learn from that and they learn from us. So if we get together and create that stronger voice going forward, we can certainly make changes.
All right, hopefully that will be the case then. I just want to talk to you a little bit as well about the idea that we could be in the early goings of the pandemic situation here and the strict social distancing protocols that are in place in Nova Scotia. How are you and your members preparing for the weeks and the months ahead? Because we could be looking well into the summer, well into the fall, and possibly beyond. So what is your perspective as you folks get ready for the long haul in a situation like this?
Well, like I say, we're learning every day. I know, like I said, some businesses had closed, and then they are seeing that other businesses are being able to strive through this pandemic. So I think they're, having those conversations. Nobody knows when this will end. Is it going to, are we going to have a little bit of a come back to work at a smaller scale in the summertime? Maybe, but there's certainly talk of another wave coming in the fall. So I definitely think that businesses have to look at how to reach out and get to their customers in a different way. So, and I think that some of the businesses will be able to, the things that they're learning through this pandemic will definitely help down the road how they can deliver, because they are starting some e-commerce and they are, able to change that. I know there was one business we talked to, and they said that they had some things for sale online, but they didn't have other things. So they've changed their business model, and they are offering more things, and it's just they didn't have time to implement it. So now they're, I guess they're having to implement those things. So, some of it will benefit them in the future, and I think, I think and hope that we'll learn from this and, be better for it in the end, that, learn and change our business models going forward.
And on that note, I just want to wrap up, Susan, by talking about the idea that the Strait of Canso has had peaks and valleys over the years in terms of its business community. What do you think you folks gain as a result of all this going forward? If you look 4 to 5 years into the future, I mean, you've talked about new ways of doing business and working together, even though we're apart right now. But do you think there's a possibility that as a business community, the Strait can come out stronger from all of this?
Oh, like as I said, I think that, you make the connections with one another and you see that we all struggle, and it doesn't have to be in pandemic times. Sometimes we all have the same problem in our business, whether it be that you didn't have time to get your social media to where you want it to be, or you didn't have time to start selling your products at a different level, with the online services that are out there. And, in talking to one another, I think we realize that we are still having the same problems. And I think that we will go forward. The chambers, like I said, they were created to build a community together. And I think we will go forward with that.
Well, we certainly look forward to seeing what happens as a result of all of this. And in the meantime, I'd like to thank you, Susan, for giving me a couple of minutes here this morning. We wish you and your chamber colleagues and all the business community well as we go through this. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Adam. And one thing I would like to say is we have a FemPower webinar coming up on Fridays.
Yes.
And we created that. We had a women's leadership event in Bedeck in February. And we had a couple of the panelists from that reach out to us. Michelle Greenwell and Ronnie Davis wanted to connect with the community, male and female, so it's not just for ladies, to connect with them to help them get through the pandemic. Our mental health affects our physical health. So we have already had one of those. Last Friday was on mindfulness, and tomorrow we will have one on nutrition, and nutrition being we're all snacking and grabbing that bag of chips mindlessly through this, and why do we do it, and then the last week is on movement, and Michelle Greenwell will speak to that, and Ronnie Davis is more of the cognitive eating side of things for this coming week. But with the events that have gone on in the province this week, although we started this for the pandemic, it's really the troubles that Colchester County is going through right now is astronomical. We can't imagine. All of our minds are trying to comprehend a pandemic, and then our province has been hit with that. And I believe more than ever, we did create this for the pandemic, but it is to, help ourselves get through this, and it's your health and your mind and mental and physical health are affected, and that affects your business and it affects your home life. So I encourage people to, if you can get on those webinars, do so, and if not, there are actions relief out there. Reach out to someone, talk to someone, and there's counseling lines. We get through it together. So reach out to people and talk about it. And like I say, if you can come on those webinars on Friday, they are FemPower, our Women Leading Change, is where it all started, but it's for everybody. So we like to support the businesses with that as well.
That's all food for thought in more ways than one, and we certainly appreciate that perspective as well, not always talked about in terms of business, so we appreciate that very much. Thank you again, Susan, and we wish you folks well as we go forward.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. You take care.
You too. Susan Fox is the Acting Executive Director of the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce. We've been speaking to her today by Zoom. Please stay tuned for more of Telile 24/7. Now, some of you might remember that we had Amanda Burkett as a guest on Telile 24/7 not that long ago, and that Amanda was the Executive Director of the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce until mid-March. However, she is now back with the Chamber, even though she has started a new job with the Nova Scotia Community College, because Amanda has been asked to rejoin the Chamber as a special advisor to help them out through the COVID-19 crisis. So we're going to speak to Amanda Burkett right now and also get her to put on her other hat with the Village on the Canal Association, or VOCA, in St. Peter's, to talk about how that community in particular has been dealing with the COVID-19 issue. Let's speak to Amanda right now. So we're very glad to have Amanda Burkett joining us once again on Telile 24/7, and this is a very, very different time from the last time we had you in, because for one thing, we were doing this in the Telile studio, and you were doing this from home right now, both of us. And for another thing, you were just finishing up your time as Executive Director of the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce, and now all of a sudden find yourself back in giving them a hand. Could you give me a sense on just how that part of it all came about and what exactly your role is now?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I finished up my official term with the chamber on March 20th. But obviously, in the middle of all of that, business have been really struck hard by the pandemic situation we're experiencing. And so, after chatting with the executive and the staff, we came to an agreement that I would provide some advocacy support during this time, because frankly, it's unprecedented. We couldn't have predicted this, how impactful it would be and how much work there would be involved to try to keep businesses abreast of things. So it's been the long, slow goodbye with the executive director position, but it's kind of nice, because I'm really happy to be able to continue to support them in however I can. The Chamber is such an incredibly valuable organization, and it's just so much better when we're businesses working together. We're much stronger that way.
Is there anything that the Chamber itself does for businesses or provides for businesses at a time like this? Because I do understand that there were some insurance plans that were set up for businesses that were members of the Chamber. Does anything like that really come into play at a time like this when there's an unexpected shutdown? What can you tell me about what exactly is available in that regard?
But the Chamber does offer a group health insurance option for businesses, with even the smallest of businesses. I know we had it at the Chamber ourselves, and there's only 2 or 3 of us working there from time to time, right? So what that does is it allows employees to have access to group health insurance plans, which is an extremely important tool. But what it also includes now is a teledoc option. And that gives you access 24/7 to physician expertise by phone. I'm really excited to see that there's training being offered now online through the Chamber, as well as FemPower webinar coming up tomorrow. So lots of really great services to help businesses get through this.
Well, with that in mind, can you give me a sense on what you're hearing from various business people that you're talking to around the General Strait? Some of these people that you would have seen over and over again in your previous life, but what are people saying to you about the difficulties that they're having with the social distancing protocols in right now?
Yeah, well, I think one thing I'm hearing loud and clear is that there's still a lot of confusion. Businesses are still trying to figure out what appropriate steps they need to be taking. Some have it figured out more than others, but every business is different, and so people are still struggling a little bit with that. I think the self-assessment tool that the provincial government has provided is helpful. But there are organizations like the Chamber out there where if you need to bounce ideas off of, or you need to ask direct questions that are specific to your situation, I would encourage businesses to do that. I'm also hearing that there's lots of businesses who feel like they are falling through the cracks a bit. So there are restrictions on government programs, and they feel like they've been excluded from them. It was really fantastic yesterday to see government announce the changes to the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and eligibility and all that. We've been able to, in working with MP Mike Kellaway, identify that if you're a business owner, you can be laid off from your business and receive the CERB, but you can also, for the business that is still running and the employees that are still working, you can also access the wage subsidy, 75% wage subsidy. So there's been some confusion around, if I access one program, can I not get the other? And that kind of thing. People are still feeling left out by the Canada Emergency Business Account, the $40,000 interest-free loan from the federal government, because of the restrictions on payroll. So you need to be earning between $50,000, or you need to have paid between $50,000 and $1 million in payroll in 2019 to qualify for that. And that, of course, excludes a lot of the small and micro businesses in our region, businesses who contract out work as opposed to pay salaries. So there are some tweaks like that I think, collectively we need to be working with government to figure out what's the best solution for these businesses who are really the backbone of our economy. And that's the message that I've sent to government officials. Although we appreciate the rapid response, we need to continue to work to make sure that we assist as many businesses as possible through this difficult time. One thing I wanted to mention, Adam, in particular, is that I was involved in a conversation this week with the Atlantic Provinces Economic Council, where they presented information related to the impact in Canada, but also specifically in the Atlantic region and Nova Scotia. And APEC is calling this, and I think quite rightly, the Great Shutdown. And their discussion was, related to the impacts that are happening now. So, for instance, I believe Nova Scotia has been among the hardest hit of the Atlantic provinces in terms of job losses. I think about 25,000 last month alone. Youth and women have taken the brunt of that, I'm sure, for a variety of reasons. And we're projecting right now that Canada as a country will have had a 9% reduction in GDP, which is the highest reduction since the 1960s. So this is a major, major issue, obviously, that's going to be with us for a long time. And the reason I'm mentioning all of this is because I want to be really clear about, the policy measures that government is taking on this. And we appreciate the financial supports and the liquidity. But at the end of the day, we all need to be aware that the containment strategies being announced by government are the most important economic policy. It will determine the success of many businesses because it will determine the duration and severity of this great shutdown. And so, as a Chamber of Commerce, former ED, it's difficult for me to be saying, stay home, but at the end of the day, you really need to be doing that as much as possible. And so, the duration of this thing is key. The impacts will increase if it starts to drag on and on and on into the summer and into the fall.
Well, let me ask you a bit about the idea that it could drag on well into July and August. And I want to speak to two aspects of the local economy that are really key, and especially in terms of seasonal workers, the tourism industry and the fishing and seafood processing industry as well, too. We have quite a few people that depend on both of those. Are they starting to speak to you and starting to issue some concern? What are you hearing from either of those?
Well, I think there's been widespread concern in those industries. Certainly, I mean, this has been top of mind for these folks. I mean, the bottom line is that our economy will only recover in so much as the economies of our main trading partners recover, right? So we need to be able to export. We need to be able to accept visitors from regions. We will only recover as quickly as our main trading partners, and of course, the U.S. is a big part of that. And so, what we're seeing happening there is extremely alarming to many in the business community, including the fishing and tourism industries. And there's absolutely real concern, and I think some of the supports that have been announced will absolutely be beneficial to the folks who were on the front lines of those industries in terms of the CERB access and other things, like that. In terms of being able to access that benefit, in particular, should your EI run out when you would normally be working, right? So, I think we're seeing some care being taken to protect workers in those industries, but from a business, strictly a business perspective, it's a real concern when you start to see your markets evaporate and your visitors stay home. So, yeah.
Let me ask you, just kind of picking up on that, what's your sense on how local businesses have been able to adapt over the last little bit? And, we've seen in particular in the food service industry, restaurants and such, they've been able to convert to takeout, but not all of them have been able to do that. And some have shut down indefinitely. Yeah. We're seeing the differences in how supermarkets handle their businesses, of course, with social distancing and what have you. What's your sense, just kind of looking out on the landscape, as to how businesses around here are doing in terms of adapting to the social distancing protocols and the change in tide over here?
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer that necessity is the mother of invention, and nobody is more inventive than a small business owner making sure that their business survives the storm. And I have been absolutely shocked to see the level of compassion and inventiveness, the innovations coming from businesses, as they are, number one, working to protect the health and safety of their customers and their employees, and number two, ensuring their own business continuity by making changes to their business model. And so, I see so many who are approaching this situation with those two lenses: health and safety and business continuity, and it's just amazing. So some of the well, I'm a big believer that necessity is the mother of invention, and nobody is more inventive than a small business owner making sure that their business survives the storm. And I have been absolutely shocked to see the level of compassion and inventiveness, the innovations coming from businesses, as they are, number one, working to protect the health and safety of their customers and their employees, and number two, ensuring their own business continuity by making changes to their business model. And so, I see so many who are approaching this situation with those two lenses: health and safety and business continuity, and it's just amazing. So some of the examples, I mean, we're seeing what's happening at the groundswell. It's like a contactless purchase system with their takeout option, and we're seeing that grocery stores like Foodland and many others that are making sure that there's directional travel for customers. I mean, these are serious measures that are being taken, that are absolutely costing the business money in many cases, but they are being done out of the concern for their customers and out of the concern for their employees. And it's really, it's in times of crisis, look for the helpers, and it really goes to show that these small businesses are committed to the survival of their community, but also to the survival of their businesses. It's fantastic to see lots of bright lights out there.
Now, that's wonderful. Yeah. You mentioned Foodland just a moment ago, and I wanted to put on one of your other hats, if you could, one of the hats with the Village on the Canal Association in St. Peter's, because that's a community that had really been growing and expanding economically. A lot of new businesses setting up there. all of a sudden the brakes are being put on. What's your sense on how that particular community and the surrounding communities are doing in this time?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Adam, I was driving around with a great big pair of grand opening scissors in my car all over this community for a period of months, and it was wonderful. And we're seeing, businesses like the Bredor Lakes Inn have changed their business model. We're seeing that, when you walk into the B&E general store now, the plexiglass is up, so precautions are being taken, and it's it's definitely hard on business right now. I think from my perspective, with Village on the Canal Association, with VOCA, I'm really concerned about our festival season. Lobster Fest is around the corner, and Nicholas Denny's Days, the Swim the Canal event, and these festivals drove so much economic activity in our community. I'm really concerned about the momentum that we lose. Should we have to skip some of those this year? And the reality is we most likely will have to skip some of them. I can tell you those conversations are happening right now, and decisions are being made with regards to festivals that are we're supposed to start in late June, early July, right through to October. And so, this is going to be a rougher year, but I think at the end of the day, when you look at the resiliency of the business community and the commitment that the commitment that community members have to supporting that community, those businesses, I do think that there's a strong recovery that's going to happen afterwards. We need to be making smart decisions now to protect the health and safety of everyone. But like I said, this containment strategy is our most important policy, and it will determine how long we need to shut down. So I'm pretty optimistic that these pieces will, these festivals will come back, hopefully stronger than ever, right?
I hope so too, and I personally would be just not feeling right if I didn't get to take part in Swim the Canal this year.
Right?
So, yeah, it just doesn't feel like the summer without it in St. Peter's and the surrounding area. So,
exactly.
But on a more serious note, just as we're heading into the home stretch here, Amanda, you mentioned the idea that this is one of the biggest hits that Canada's GDP has taken in several decades, and I just wonder, where do folks like you and the Chamber of Commerce and the local business community look to in terms of trying to deal with something like this? Because it seems that the last time that there was any kind of situation where there was any kind of an economic impact and we saw businesses closing was when there was a chance that the Point Tupper paper mill might not be sold and might not reopen. This nearly 9 years ago.
Right.
But this seems to be expanding on that exponentially. So I just wonder, do you folks in the Strait Area business community look to times like that? Do you look outside the community to different parts of the country or even the world? Where do you turn to for some thoughts and some advice on how to be able to get through a time like this?
Well, that's a giant question, but I mean, I can tell you right off the bat that I continue to believe that we're stronger when we work together. We can't look inside of our own borders for full recovery opportunities. That's just not the way it works. We have small IT businesses in this region that depend on the export of skills and services. We have lobster exporters. We have so many tourism providers. Like I said earlier, Adam, we will only recover as quickly as our major trading partners recover. And that's the reality. In terms of what to do to get there, I think the approach needs to be that businesses are working with government to create the best possible conditions for success as we go forward. I'll be looking forward to observing and discussing, potential stimulus activity with our elected representatives in the future. I'm quite sure the Chamber will be heavily involved in that as well. And the trick is that's got to come at the right time. It's got to come. If it comes too soon, then we will burn all the rocket fuel too quickly. And if it comes too late, then we'll be behind the eight ball in terms of our recovery. So I do think that business and government needs to work hand in hand together. And I also will say that from my experience at the Chamber, it was really useful to know that not just our 380 members were working together, but also that we were connected at the Atlantic level to the Atlantic Chamber of Commerce and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. And every day, these are the organizations that we work with to influence policy, but also to get new ideas in terms of how to support the business community, and those regional and national connections, not just through chambers, but also through organizations like the Cape Breton Partnership and government and informal groups. Those are going to be critical, and I think, in terms of our ability to continue to be innovative and to come out of this slump on the other end.
That's well said, Amanda. And we have covered a lot of ground here in just a short time, and I really appreciate your help here. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add about all of this just before we wrap up?
I think we need to be aware of the risks, I guess, that are coming along with the policy decisions of government, and I would just urge our elected representatives to to beware of those risks. So beware the stimulus in terms of the timing, things like, I think one of the biggest risks we're facing is that if this shutdown is prolonged over a long period of time, then, there are lots of businesses who are just simply not going to make it. And so we need to be paying attention to those kinds of risks. I think we need to be watchful of the slower containment with our trading partners, as I mentioned, and that, we don't want to be overly optimistic in our planning. We need to be realistic in our planning, but not without hope. So if we can put the hope together with the plan, then I think that's still going to be the way forward for many small businesses, but also for governments in general.
All right. Well, we hope that there are hopeful times ahead for all of us, and especially for the business community. And we're glad to get your point of view on all of this. Amanda Burkett, thank you for joining us once again on Telile 24/7.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And that wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you once again for joining us, and we'd also like to thank our interview subjects this week, Susan Fox and Amanda Burkett. A big thank you as well to everybody at Telile that's been working so hard to get the show on the air during these difficult times. A special thank you to Telile's business manager, Cora LeBlanc, for helping me out this week. I'd also like to remind you that you can follow Telile on various social media feeds. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and in addition to show information, we do try to put up some helpful information in terms of COVID-19 on these sites. You can also go to Telile's YouTube channel. Every single episode of Telile 24/7, including this one, is available on the channel, and there's all kinds of other interesting programming that we've put together over the last little while as well. If you're still looking for information on COVID-19, you can go to a few different resources online. You can go to the World Health Organization website. That is who.int. And you can also, for a Canadian perspective, go to the website canada.ca/coronavirus. Again, that's canada.ca/coronavirus. For a Nova Scotia perspective, go to the 811 website. And if you feel that you might have COVID-19 symptoms yourself, you can call 811 on your phone. A reminder, don't call 911 if you feel you have COVID-19 symptoms. And there is also another number that you can call. It's the Canada Coronavirus Information Line. That is 1-833-784-4397. Again, that's 1-833-784-4397. I don't usually do commentaries on Telile 24/7, but I would like to end this show by sharing a few thoughts that I've had concerning the terrible tragedy that unfolded in northern and central Nova Scotia over the past weekend. We've all been touched by this tragic loss of life that happened so quickly over a 12-hour span. And there's a reason that we've all been touched by this, apart from the absolute tragedy of having to say goodbye to someone in such short order, whether we knew them or not. The point is, we in the Telile coverage area all come from rural communities, not all that different from Portapique, many of them about the same size as Portapique. We come from communities like Arishat, Petit de Gras, Janvrin's Island, West Arishat. We come from communities like Evanston, Whiteside, Huronville, Lower River inhabitants. We come from communities like Dundee, St. George's Channel, St. Peter's, River Bourgeois, Grand Grave, Lordways, Grand River, Framboise, and Forshoe. We come from communities like Budladek First Nation, Salmon River, Irish Cove, and Johnstown and Red Islands. When one of our sister communities here in Nova Scotia is violated the way Portapique, Shubenacadie, Glenholm, and Enfield were violated over the past weekend, it touches us all and makes us wonder what we can do. Well, I have no real answers about what we can do. I'm just a journalist. I'm just a human being like the rest of you. One thing I do know is that in times like this, I do often turn to the Bible and to Scripture. And the Scripture that comes to my mind most often when a tragedy like this unfolds in our own home province, a place that we never thought it could happen, is a line from Psalm 30 that says, "Weeping may endure through the night, but joy comes in the morning." It's going to take a long time for joy to come to Portapique, to Colchester County, and to the many places from one end of Nova Scotia to the other that were impacted by this tragedy. And in the meantime, until that joy comes, let's keep reaching out to each other, despite the isolation that we have to put ourselves into, and find some way, big, small, or anywhere in between, that you can show your love and support for our neighbours in Portapique and throughout Colchester County and throughout Nova Scotia. Together we are stronger. And together, we're going to get through this, one day, one heart, and one small community at a time. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Adam Cooke. Look forward to seeing you again soon with the next edition of Telile 24/7.